Okay, so here is a part 2 task. Many people think cheap air travel should be encouraged because it gives ordinary people freedom to travel further. However, others think this leads to environmental problems, so air travel should be more expensive in order to discourage people from having it. Discuss both views and give your own opinion. Alright, so our answer comes in, or our response rather, comes in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 paragraphs. And if I do a word count, the word count comes to 365 words. So it's a pretty lengthy response, probably more than what most people can write in the 40 minutes they have. And I'll talk a little bit more about this in just a second. I just want to switch to another program. Okay, hopefully here we have a wider screen. Now, when I look at this prompt, what I notice is there are some errors in the prompt. So for example, here it should be environmental problems, and here it says, so air travel should be more expensive in order to discourage people from having it. But surely people cannot have air travel. They can use air travel, or they can make use of air travel, but they can't have it. So that makes me think that this is a case of a candidate doing the actual test who copied down the task and then put it on the internet. But they made some mistakes when they copied it down. Okay, well anyway, let's have a look at the last sentence here. Discuss both views and give your own opinion. Now, that's of course pretty important, because if we don't fulfill this, we're going to have some problems getting a proper score. Now, let's have a look at this here. Unfortunately, this is too low. Let's move this up. Okay, so basically there are 4 questions, or 4 question types. There are argument questions where you have to give an opinion and argue a side, and there are other types of argument questions where you have to give an opinion and argue both sides. And then there are discussion questions, and then there are mixed questions where you need to discuss the issue and also give an opinion or argue a side. Let's just have a look at the task response criteria as it relates to answering the question fully and relevantly. Or we should maybe say responding to the task fully and relevantly. If you only partially address the task, your score for task response is going to be limited to a 5. If you address all parts of the task, but you don't cover all of them fully, then your score is going to be limited to a 6. And to get a 7, you're going to have to fully address all parts of the task. Okay, so since we're dealing with an argument essay, let's quickly look at how you can outline your introduction. So your introductions should include some background using either your own knowledge or a personalization of the issue, or you can just get straight to the point. Now, this is necessary because this background or your own knowledge, whether it comes from your own knowledge or a personalization of the issue, is going to lead to the argument and then the opinion. This is necessary because otherwise, why are you making the argument? If you don't give the background, if you don't say why this is an issue, then why is there even the need for an argument if it's a non-issue? So let's have a look at what the writer did here. Okay, so here's the writer's introduction. Air travel, once a privilege of the wealthy, has been gaining popularity worldwide over the last few decades. The number of people traveling by air has been growing by leaps and bounds. Some environmentalists, however, propose that air travel be limited on the ground that it may give rise to a series of problems, including air pollution and exhaustion of the world's valuable energy resources. To my mind, it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make much sense to restrict air travel. Okay, so pretty good. They give a background here, telling us with this with this adverbial clause here using once, that it used to be a privilege of the wealthy. But since it's becoming more popular, and they use this idiom to describe how it's becoming more popular, leaps and bounds, it's becoming a problem according to some people. Okay, so the other side, the side that the writer is going to be arguing against, is introduced here. They mention some environmentalists. So the issues that the environmentalists have with air travel, those are going to be the issues that you're going to be arguing against. Now, the writer makes their position pretty clear here towards the end by saying, to my mind, it does not make much sense to restrict air travel. So we can see in the last sentence, they are opposed to what this group of people say. And the writer was very specific with who makes these claims. The writer didn't just say some people, the writer said some environmentalists. If I could just maybe make a suggestion, here it says it doesn't make much sense. Maybe we can use even stronger language. We could say, to my mind, it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make any sense to restrict air travel. So just instead of the much, if you feel strongly about it, you could say it doesn't make any sense. So it's a good introduction. From this introduction, we expect to hear about what the environmentalists say, and then we also expect to later see what the writer believes. In the introduction we just looked at, it did seem to be true. It can reasonably be believed that some environmentalists believe this. It was definitely related to the topic, and it does suggest that there is some problem. And then this leads us to the introduction of the topic. So if we look at the structure of the whole essay, in the case of an argument essay, you're going to have your introduction, you're going to have the one side, you're going to have the other side, and then you can have the conclusion with some countering and your own opinion. And this can perhaps even form part of its own paragraph. So you can have your opinion and how you counter the other side in a separate paragraph, and the conclusion all by itself. Okay, so here is the first body paragraph. The most important and obvious reason is that no other vehicle can travel as far as an airplane. In other words, air travel may be the only and easiest option when it comes to long-distance trips. For example, if a student from China wishes to go to the United States for further studies, the only means of transportation that could send him to the destination is undoubtedly the plane. Also, for some people traveling on a regular basis, such as those engaged in transnational business, air travel would mean less time on the road. This will certainly enable them to better prepare for their future tasks, such as business negotiations, both mentally and physically. All right, so here we have our topic sentence. Well, actually, here is our topic sentence. It's the only and easiest option. If it's the only option, maybe this is a little bit redundant. I mean, like I said, the whole length of the essay is, what was it, 300 and, I forgot now, 65 words? It's very lengthy. One of the reasons why it's so lengthy is because of phrases like this. Like, for example, this sentence here. I made some of this green because really, we could just replace all of this with one word, speed. So the most important, obvious reason is speed. And then this, in other words. Do we really need this phrase? So instead of saying that, air travel, now here they used may, which kind of makes it sound like you're not sure of your argument. So why not just say air travel is the only and easiest option when it comes to long distance trips. So you can omit this. It's already very lengthy. And let's get rid of the modal. But if we look at the structure, so we have the topic sentence, and then they give an example, and they further exemplify it with this example of people who travel for business reasons, and there's referencing. This will certainly enable them. So being able to take a plane. So the whole paragraph is very cohesive. It's well written. Only problem is it's a little bit wordy. I mean, you have 40 minutes. Most people cannot write this many words in 40 minutes. Okay, let's have a look at the second body paragraph. In addition, air travel offers the comfort that cannot be found elsewhere. Most people who have the experience of traveling by air are bound to miss the snacks and drinks served on board, as well as the smiles on the faces of flight attendants. In some cases, you could even enjoy a favorite movie while on a plane, completely unaware that you are hundreds of thousands of feet above ground. Let's just go back for a second and look at the task again. The task says air travel should be encouraged because it gives ordinary people freedom to travel further. Here the writer is talking about snacks and drinks and movies. This does not exactly respond to what the task is asking you to do. The task is not concerned with how comfortable the ride is or what movies you might be able to enjoy on board. So this support here is not strictly speaking relevant to what the task is asking you to do. Now also, the writer seems to have some problems with articles. Now, comfort here is preceded by the article the. But comfort is a noun, but this noun is what is called like an abstract noun. So abstract nouns are not preceded by articles unless you are specifically talking about specific comfort. But here, we're not talking about specific comfort, we're just talking about comfort in general. And so since it is an abstract noun, we don't need the here. And then here, most people who have the experience of traveling by air. So this should instead be most people who have, well, if you want to use the experience as a noun, so then we need another verb there. We need a main verb. Who have had the experience of traveling by air are bound to miss the snacks and drinks. This is kind of funny. As well as the smiles on the faces of flight attendants. Well, if you're talking about specific faces, then I guess it's going to have to be specific flight attendants as well. So then let's add the article there if we're specifying. Now, okay, that's fine. I just think this argument is really weak. Let's look at an approach you can follow to make a more convincing argument. Okay, so the points that you make in support of your argument need to be logical, relevant, strong, honest, concise, and wide in scope, meaning it should apply to a large group of people, not just you and your friends, but it's something that no one else cares about. So the argument we just saw falls short because it's not relevant to what the task is asking you to do. Also, I don't think it's a particularly strong argument. Having snacks on board, that's not very convincing. And it could be written in a more concise manner. So when you are considering what to use as support for your argument, you can consider the economy, the environment, safety, health, and lifestyle. Because these issues are all strong issues, or rather they are issues from which strong arguments can be made. They affect everybody, so they are wide in scope, and if you choose the correct ones, then they will be both relevant and logical. Okay, here we get to the third body paragraph, and now it's time to start worrying. Let's go through the paragraph. Last but not least, it's important to bear in mind that air travel is simply a personal choice and should be respected. Well, why use simply? If it's such an important issue, then why use the word simply? This clearly means that any attempt to restrict air travel would be seen as a violation of human rights and is both groundless and unjustified. Again, let's go back to the text. Discuss both views. I haven't seen any discussion of the other side, the environmentalists, and we're at the third paragraph now. So this person seems to have ignored the other side of the argument, and they are using the first three body paragraphs to give support to just one issue, and each paragraph just has one piece of support. Now this last paragraph, air travel is simply a personal choice, should be respected. Okay, that's fine. This clearly means that any attempt to restrict air travel would be seen as a violation of human rights. I'm not aware of the human right to travel by air. I've never heard of that. People have the right to liberty, they have the freedom of movement, but it doesn't mean that you have the right to travel by air. Otherwise, why would we need tickets if everyone has the right to fly in an airplane? You wouldn't need to go buy a ticket. You could just say, hey, this is my human right to take this flight. It's an absurd argument. And any attempt to restrict air travel, but air travel is already restricted because, well, for one thing, like I just mentioned, you need a ticket to get on board. And furthermore, flights are divided into different classes. You've got first, business, economy. So it's already done, and nobody seems to think that that is groundless or unjustified. People seem to think that it makes a lot of sense. Those who have more money pay more money, and they get better seating. So this is so weak, and logically it doesn't make sense. A much better approach would be something like this, where in your first paragraph you have a reason why you take this approach, or a reason why some people support this opinion, and then in your next paragraph you give support to the reason, and in the third body paragraph you discuss the other side, and then you include your counter argument, because remember, you have to give your view, and this other side is going to be the view that you disagree with. But this needs to be included. It's in the task. Okay, and here we get to the last paragraph, the summary. So they say, in summary, despite the various problems arising from air travel, it should not be eliminated. It should not be limited or eliminated. What we should do is to give full play to the function of air travel by maximizing its benefits while trying to come up with practical solutions to the existing problems, such as developing fuel-efficient airplanes and alternative energy resources. Okay. Now, in your conclusion, you cannot introduce new ideas. The writer did not talk about any problems at all. They just told us how great air travel is because you can watch movies, you can have snacks, it's great for people to travel for business. Nowhere did they discuss the problems. So, well, except of course in the introduction. So they're introducing something new in the conclusion, which is something you shouldn't do. This was completely neglected in the body. Now, what I do like is this, to give full play to the function of air travel. That is a good phrase to use. Now, here I underlined alternative energy resources. I'm not entirely sure how this relates to air travel. The fuel-efficient airplanes, I understand that. I mean, I think that's continuously being done by all aircraft manufacturers. They all strive to develop better and better fuel efficiency for their airplanes. But alternative energy resources, does the writer mean like solar-powered planes? I'm not entirely sure. Anyway, that's the conclusion. So let's look at what we have here and then see what the band descriptors have to say about the writing. Okay, so as I mentioned, task achievement has got to be limited to a 5 because the writer did not address the other side. For coherence and cohesion, I would say that everything is logically organized, there is progression, and they do use cohesive devices, like I showed in the example before. For vocabulary, I would say there's a sufficient range of vocabulary to show some flexibility and precision, but I wouldn't say it's a wide range of vocabulary. And I also wouldn't say that the vocabulary was used fluently and flexibly to convey precise meanings. And the uncommon words were not particularly skillfully used, especially when they talked about business travel. There weren't really problems with word choices so much, but it's just the range. However, for the grammar, I did think that there was a wide range of structures that were used, and the majority of sentences were error-free. There were some problems with main verbs missing and some problems with articles, but these were not systematic errors. They didn't always occur. It was just in a few places. So the grammar is really a strong point. Well, thank you for watching. I hope you found this video on the writing test 2 useful. And next, I'll be looking at speaking part 1.